Hello and welcome to our channel. We will be discussing the critical approaches to literature. Critical approaches are different perspectives we consider when looking at a piece of literature. They seek to give us answers to these questions, in addition to aiding us in interpreting literature. What do we read? Why do we read? And how do we read? Critical approaches to consider: reader response criticism, formalist criticism, psychological or psychoanalytic criticism, theological criticism, feminist, gender criticism, Marxist criticism, biographical criticism, and new historicist criticism. 1. The reader response approach. Reader response criticism asserts that a great deal of meaning in a text lies in how the reader responds to it. It focuses on the act of reading and how it affects our perception of meaning in a text. It deals more with the process of creating meaning and experiencing a text as meaning. A text is an experience, not a meaning. The text is a living thing that lives in the reader's imagination. The two important ideas in reader response are: 1. An individual readers interpret visual change over time. 2. Readers from different generations and different time periods interpret text differently. Ultimately, how do you feel about what you have read, or what do you think it means? 2. The formalist approach. Formalist criticism emphasizes the form of a literary work to determine its meaning, focusing on literary elements and how they work to create meaning. It examines a text as independent from its time, period, social setting, and author's background. A text is an independent entity. It also focuses on close reading of text and analysis of the effects of literary elements and techniques of the text. There are two major principles of formalism. 1. A literary text exists independent of any particular reader and has a fixed meaning. 2. The greatest literary texts are timeless and universal. 3. The psychological or psychoanalytic approach. Psychological criticism views a text as a revelation of its author's mind and personality. It is based on the work of Sigmund Freud. It also focuses on the hidden motivations of literary characters. 4. The sociological approach. Sociological criticism argues that social context must be considered when analyzing a text. It focuses on the values of the society and how those views are reflected in a text. It emphasizes the economic, political, and cultural issues within literary texts. The core belief of sociological approach is that literature is a reflection of its society. Under sociological approach, we have the Marxist approach. Marxist approach emphasizes economic and social conditions. Marxist approach concerned with understanding the role of power, politics, and money in literary texts. Marxist criticism examines literature to see how it reflects, like the way in which dominant groups exploit the subordinate groups, and the way in which people become alienated from one another through power, money, and politics. Also, under the sociological approach is the feminist approach. Feminist approach is concerned with the role, position, and influence of women in the literary text. It asserts that most literature throughout time has been written by men and for men. It examines the way that the female consciousness is depicted by both male and female writers. There are 4 basic principles of feminist criticism. 1. Western civilization is patriarchal. 2. The concepts of gender are mainly cultural ideas created by patriarchal societies. 3. Patriarchal ideas pervade literature. And 4. Most literature through time has been gender biased. 5th, the biographical approach argues that we must take an author's life and background into account when we study a text. There are 3 benefits. 1. Facts about an author's experience can help a reader decide how to interpret a text. 2. A reader can better appreciate a text by knowing a writer's struggles or difficulties in creating that text. 3. A reader can understand a writer's preoccupation by studying the way they apply and modify their own life experience in their work. 6. The New Historicist approach. New Historicist criticism argues that every literary work is a product of its time and its world, provides background information necessary to understand how literary texts were perceived in their time. It shows how literary text reflects ideas and attitudes of the time in which they were written. New Historicist critics often compare the language in contemporary documents and literary texts to reveal cultural assumptions and values in the text. Remember, we will never look at a text strictly from one standpoint or another, ignoring all other views. That is anti-ethical to what we are trying to do. We should always keep our focus on the text and use these critical approaches to clarify our understanding of a text and develop an interpretation of it.